The flip side, 232 to 306 again.
Yeah, we're waiting to hear from Biden right now. At some point, he's going to walk out. It's 10:45 here on the East Coast is ready. You see the flags, you see the podium, the lectern there. He's going to be speaking at some point, making a statement that's going to be interesting to hear what they have to say. All right, Jake, Dan, and Abby, guys, it's all yours.
Well, it's a big night for the former vice president. Not the big night he thought he was going to have, perhaps, when they originally planned this address. And they thought that by now a major news network was going to call one of the key states to bring him over the line of 270 electoral votes. But that has not yet happened, however close it might be to happening in Arizona or Pennsylvania or Nevada. But he still has a lot to say, and he wants to get cracking. Dana Bash, while we wait for him to step up to the podium, what are you anticipating the former vice president might say?
Well, according to his people around him, people in the campaign, it's going to be an attempt to kind of build on what we've heard from him over the last few days. Stay calm, stay patient, and like I said before, to give an air and an aura of being presidential, of saying, okay, this is what we do in America. This is what we do in a democracy. We see the votes counted. What I don't know is how much he's going to lean into the fact that he's got this. I mean, the fact that he's coming out suggests that that is obviously what the message is that he wants to telegraph.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, though, he is going to point out just as a statement of fact that he is leading in most of the states that have not been called by CNN, although some states have been called by other networks. He's leading in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, in Nevada, and in Georgia right now. And you heard that Allegheny County election official just a moment ago say, we know what direction this is headed in. And I think that's kind of the sense that we might get from Joe Biden tonight, that they know, or they believe they know, what direction Pennsylvania in particular is heading in, which is, for him, if he wins it, a decisive factor.
And it is an indisputable fact, as you speak. We see on the screen 4 states, Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania, they're the color blue with Joe Biden's face there. And 4 years ago, those were Donald Trump wins. And that's what made him president. And we're not there yet on those, but that tells a very clear story.
And just a few minutes ago, we heard from Allegheny County, the county where Pittsburgh is, and there was a net awarding of about 1,800 votes for Joe Biden, and we anticipate that's going to happen throughout the night as Pennsylvanians continue to count the votes. There are still tens of thousands outstanding, but the trend is very, very clear. As you just heard from the Allegheny County election supervisor, the trend is very, very clear that Joe Biden, the more they count, is just picking up vote after vote after vote because so many Democrats disproportionately voted according to vote by mail. And so many Republicans, Trump supporters, voted on the day of the election. And that continues to be the trend. And we've watched it happen now for days, completely eroding Donald Trump's once surmountable lead, which was based on day of voting almost exclusively, to the point that Joe Biden is now ahead by almost 30,000 votes.
Yeah, and the president mused tonight about why his lead that he once had in Pennsylvania went away, and it's just pretty simple. They're counting votes. They're counting as many votes as they can, as quickly as they can, in a really laborious fashion in Pennsylvania. So we have to give those election workers as much credit as we can.
All right, here comes former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris, the would-be president-elect and would-be vice president-elect. Let's listen in.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. We don't have a final declaration of victory yet, but the numbers tell us it's clear, tell us a clear and convincing story. We're going to win this race. Just look at what has happened since yesterday. 24 hours, we were behind in Georgia. Now we're ahead, and we're going to win that state. 24 hours ago, we were behind in Pennsylvania, and we are going to win Pennsylvania. And now we're ahead, but we're winning in Arizona, we're winning in Nevada, and in fact, our lead just doubled in Nevada. We're on track to over 300 electoral college votes. And look at the national numbers. We're going to win this race with a clear majority of the nation behind us. We've gotten over 74 million votes. Let me repeat that, 74 million votes. That's more than any presidential ticket has ever gotten in the history of the United States of America. And our vote total is still growing. We're beating Donald Trump by over 4 million votes. And that's a margin that's still growing as well. One of the things I'm especially proud of is how well we've done across America. And we're going to be the first Democrat to win in Arizona in 24 years. We're going to be the first Democrat to win Georgia in 28 years. And we've rebuilt the blue wall in the middle of the country that crumbled just 4 years ago. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, the heartland of this nation. I know watching these vote tallies on TV moves very slow, and as slow as it goes, it can be numbing. But never forget, the tallies aren't just numbers. They represent votes and voters, men and women who exercise their fundamental right to have their voice heard. And what's becoming clear each hour is that record number of Americans of all races, faiths, religions chose change over more of the same. They've given us a mandate for action on COVID, the economy, climate change, systemic racism. They made it clear they want the country to come together, not continue to pull apart. The people spoke, more than 74 million Americans, and they spoke loudly for our ticket. But while we're waiting for the final results, I want people to know we're not waiting to get the work done and start the process. Yesterday, Senator Harris and I held meetings with groups of experts on public health and the economic crisis this country is facing. The pandemic, as you also know, is getting more worrisome all across the country. Daily cases are skyrocketing, and it's now believed that we could see as many as 200,000 cases in a single day. The death toll is approaching 240,000 lives lost to this virus. That's 240,000 empty chairs, kitchen tables, and dining room tables all across America. We'll never be able to measure all that pain and the loss, the suffering that so many families have experienced. We know something about what it feels like to lose someone. And I want them to know they're not alone. Our hearts break with you. I want everyone to know on day one, we're going to put our plan to control this virus into action. We can't save any of the lives lost, any of those have been lost, but we can save a lot of lives in the months ahead. Senator Harris and I also heard yesterday about how this recovery is slowing because of the failure to get the pandemic under control. More than 20 million people are on unemployment. Millions are worried about making rent and putting food on the table. Our economic plan will put a focus on a path to a strong recovery. Look, we both know tensions are high. They can be high after a tough election, one like we've had. But we need to remember, we have to remain calm, patient. Let the process work out as we count all the votes. You know, we're proving again what we've proved for 244 years in this country. Democracy works. Your vote will be counted. I don't care how hard people try to stop it. I will not let it happen. The people will be heard. Our journey is toward a more perfect union, and it keeps moving on. In America, we hold strong views. We have strong disagreements, and that's okay. Strong disagreements are inevitable in a democracy, and strong disagreements are healthy. They're a sign of a vigorous debate, of deeply held views. But we have to remember, the purpose of our politics isn't total, unrelenting, unending warfare. No, the purpose of our politics, the work of the nation, isn't to fan the flames of conflict, but to solve problems, to guarantee justice, to give everybody a fair shot, and to improve the lives of our people. We may be opponents, but we're not enemies. We're Americans. No matter who you voted for, I'm certain of one thing. The vast majority of almost 150 million Americans who voted, they want to get the vitriol out of our politics. We're certainly not going to agree on a lot of issues, but at least we can agree to be civil with one another. We have to put the anger and the demonization behind us. It's time for us to come together as a nation to heal. It's not going to be easy, but we have to try. My responsibility as president will be to represent the whole nation. And I want you to know that I'll work as hard for those who voted against me as those who voted for me. That's the job. That's the job. It's called the duty of care for all Americans. We have serious problems to deal with, from COVID to the economy to racial justice to climate change. We don't have any more time to waste on partisan warfare. You know, and more than that, we have such an incredible opportunity to build the future we want for our kids and our grandkids. I've said many, many times, I've never been more optimistic about the future of this nation. There is no reason we can't own the 21st century. We just need to remember who we are. This is the United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been unable to do, unable to accomplish when we've done it together. I hope to be talking to you tomorrow. I want to thank you all, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Good night.
Former Vice President Joe Biden walking out with his running mate, Senator Kamala Harris. It was quite a contrast from what we heard from President Trump yesterday, if that's when it was. President Trump's address was about him. It was about his anger. It was about his grievance. It was about his desire to stay in power. We just heard a different message from the former vice president, who said that nothing was official yet, but that he thought that it was clear where things were going, that they were going to win the race. He talked about how he thought it was a mandate that he was getting from the American people, he and Senator Harris, given the 74 million votes as of now for him and the Electoral College victory that seems quite within his grasp. And he talked about how the nation needs to come together, that people might be opponents, but they are not enemies. And lastly, I thought it was interesting that he talked about the voting process and the counting process and how, in fact, it could be numbing, in his words, but people needed to remember that these tallies don't represent just numbers. These represent voters.
That's right. I mean, look, he leaned into the fact that he believes he's going to win. He was very specific in the states in which he has pulled ahead: Pennsylvania, Georgia, talked about Arizona and Nevada as well, which is understandable. But beyond that, what was so striking was how big the speech was. Big and all-encompassing, and not just about the specifics about coronavirus and other things that he wants to do, which are very important, but about democracy and about coming together and about the need for a more perfect union. I mean, it was a soaring speech, as soaring as we have heard from Joe Biden, maybe since his Gettysburg speech during the campaign. But he has made the pivot from candidate to president-elect rhetorically. That is what he wanted to communicate.
Yeah, I was struck by exactly that. He said, the purpose of our politics isn't total unrelenting warfare. Mm-hmm. He knows what's coming, and that this is not going to be a walk in the park in terms of dealing with the fallout from a contentious election. But he's signaling very strongly that his intention is to move forward. Mm-hmm. And I did think it was also notable, we were discussing this earlier in the day, you know, Joe Biden is president also because the liberal wing of the party stuck with him. Mm-hmm. And you heard him refer to that today. Mm-hmm. He said this was a mandate for action on the coronavirus, on climate, on racism. Those are all big picture priorities for Democrats, the Democratic base. He called them out specifically tonight to send a message, and both messages at the same time, which was clearly very intentional, just signaling to people he's going to try to do both things.
Yesterday, President Trump, in all caps, issued a press release in which he said, if you count all the votes, the legal votes, I win. If you count the illegal votes, then they win. We discussed how the theory that he didn't tweet this because if he had tweeted it, it would have been flagged as false election information by Twitter or Facebook if he put it there. So he put it out in a press release. And then he came out. We didn't know what he was going to say. We're long past the point of hoping for a pivot from this president. But he started his remarks immediately with this thing that if he had put it on Twitter, it would have been flagged as false, with just a lie about the election. We didn't hear that tonight.
No.
We didn't hear Joe Biden mention Donald Trump.
No, there was.
It was just about the fact that the voting was happening, the counting was happening. The numbers represent voters, and we're going to get to work. We need to come together as a country.
The only slight allusion